Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I want to talk to you about the optative mood. The optative mood is used in Greek for a lot of things, but what you want to look for when you see optative endings is either oi or I. That's how you're going to spot them. In the lines that we're doing in class, 141 to 148, when Odysseus meets Nausicaa on the shore, we actually see a lot of these. So I want to take you through them really quick and show you how they work, because we're going to see a lot of them more. We're going to see a lot more of them soon. All right, so here's Odysseus, and we know he's the subject because his name is spelled like Odysseus. And it says here, Odysseus, and I put the main verb in red, but I'm going to underline it in green. Odysseus, he debated. Odysseus debated. And we know that this ha is the article that goes with Odysseus. So we find out here, right? Odysseus did what? Odysseus debated A. So whenever you have optatives, they're usually controlled, and I like to say this word controlled. They're usually controlled by another verb. Except there are a few exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, if you're seeing an optative, it's governed by something else. Something else is making Greek use the optative mood. This verb, debated, metamedixen, this is a verb that's stating a fact. Odysseus debated. That's a fact. When you have a verb that's stating a fact, that is called the indicative mood. So for those of you guys who forgot what indicative mood means, that's what it means. When a verb is stating a fact, that's called the indicative. When it is theoretical or not actually happening, that's when you use something called the optative mood. So an optative mood usually occurs in something called a dependent clause, which means something that cannot be a sentence on its own. If you want to use the big boy word instead of dependent clause, you could call this a subordinate clause. So a dependent clause or subordinate clause cannot be a real sentence if it stands on its own. So here's the first subordinate clause that goes along with this main verb. Odysseus debated A, whether or if, or whether if, either. So either if he should do what? If he should, or whether he should do this. And I told you earlier to look for oi, and there you see it right there, oi ta. Okay? There's the two letters. When you translate optatives, you can do them as should. Sometimes you can do them as would, but you need to put it in context. So he actually debated if he should, lissoita means beg, so if he should beg the what? Elopidakourein, right? So that's going to be our direct object. And remember, red is accusative, okay? Whether he should beg or entreat this beautiful maiden, and now I have a participle labon, while doing what? Right? Labon comes from the verb lambano, which means to take. And if I see this stem lab, right, I know that it's not the present stem. Right? This is present, but if it doesn't match up, we're not dealing with the present tense. So this is actually going to be the aorist tense. You can still translate it as ing. He debated whether he should beg the beautiful girl while doing what? While taking hold of her genitive of her knees. Okay, so this is actually the object of labon. While grasping her at the knees, he debated whether he should beg this beautiful maiden. What's the second half of him debating? Whether he should grasp her by the knees, A, or whether he should lysoita, again, beg her, entreat her with epeesin me lechioisi. Remember, and pink is dative, right? And I know that from this ending sin and this ending oisi. And this is going to be called a dative of means. So when you say by means of, that's going to be a dative of means. Whether he should entreat her with honey sweet words, and then understood with this word her is a participle that describes her. So whether he should entreat or beg this girl with honey sweet words, this girl, Kurain, who is standing, there's my ing, standing apo, at a distance. So whether he should grasp her by the knees physically, or whether while she's standing away from him, or he should grasp her by the knees at that point. And now I have another optative, which is this one, deixeia, and it's introduced by the word a, which means if. And that, remember, introduces what's called a subordinate or dependent clause because it can't form a real sentence, right? If this happens, that's not a real sentence. That has to be only a part of a sentence. If she might, what? And here I'm going to use the word might. If she might show, this is from the word deiknumi, which means to show. If she might show him her direct object 1, her city. So verb 1, if she might show him her city, and this is going to be one phrase. And if she might, here's phrase number 2. So I have verb 2, and I have direct object number 2. And if she might give him what? Hey mata, the clothes, some clothes. So that's the translation with a little exposition on what optative verbs do. So let's go down to the boxes down here so I can just talk about that a little more, right? So remember, in this first line, mermeriksen is the main verb, right? This is the verb that's going to control the optative verbs, which I've put over here. Okay, so what we're going to write in this box is the introductory word that tells me I'm getting an optative coming up. Okay, the introductory word for the optative. The first one here is this A, right? Whether he should beg her, and it's actually the same word here, or if he should beg her again. Right? Remember, this one is if he should beg her while grasping her at the knees, or if he should beg her with just the words. And this last one is introduced by the word a, which means if. If you look on the right, you'll actually see where I've put the endings in the paradigm. So this is optative endings in the middle voice, and these are aorist endings in the active voice. Okay, and you can just see here, right? Le soitant is there, right? In the third singular, le soitant is there in the third singular, and a is here in the third singular. So that's the first passage that I wanted to point out. The second passage is down here. Hos ara hoi frone onti do a sata. So what's he up to now? It seemed, and there's our verb, it seemed enai, and that's an infinitive, it seemed to be kerdion, it seemed to be better. And when you have it seemed in Greek, you need to say to whom. And that to person is in the dative case. Right? It seemed better to him. And this tells me, ont tells me it's a participle. So I'm going to translate this as thinking. To him, as he was thinking about it, it seemed to be better. It seemed to be better. To do what? Infinitives, usually I put in purple. Lysesthai. So careful, this esthai ending tells me this is an infinitive, right? It seemed better to beg her with epeesin melichioisi, with honey sweet words, her as she was apostada, read for accusative, as she was standing at a distance. Right? And hopefully you can see apostada is the same word we had in the passage above. And why did it seem better for him to do that than to grasp her by the knees? Right? And now we get this introduction, may. Now, may is going to have two meanings. You can translate it like this: so that, ... and to put a not later, or you can just use the word lest. So there's your two choices for the word may. Okay? Lest she do what? Lest she cholosaita, lest she get angry at whom? At hoi, right? And again, this is dative, pink. At him as he was doing this, lab onti. You can see this ending, right? Onti. Right? So another participle. Lest she get angry at him as he was grasping her knees, guna. So let's make that red, right? Accusative. And who's the one getting angry? Subject is kure. Lest the young girl get angry at him while he was grabbing her by the knees. And where is she getting angry? Frena. This is called an accusative of respect. and you translate it as with respect to. Her and Frena is mind. So, lest she become angry in her mind, this young girl, at him as he was grasping her by the knees. And so what did he do after that? So it seemed better not to grab her by the knees, and therefore he fata. He spoke this muthon, this speech, direct object, ker daleon and me likion both modify the speech. Right? So adjective 1 and adjective number 2. Right? And I put these in red because they're accusative and they both modify muthon. What's nice about that is that they all have the same ending, right? Melichion, kerdaleon, and then muthon. So that's a triple whammy. Okay, what's the main verb then? Do asata, right? It seemed to be better to do what? Lisesthai, to beg. I know esthai is my infinitive ending. It seemed better to beg. And now I'm going to use my introductory word, which is going to tell me I need an optative coming up. Introductory word for the optative. And that word in our sentence is this word may. And we translate this word as lest or so that ... not. If we do both possibilities, this is what it would sound like. It seemed to be better, Kerdion, to entreat her with honey sweet words as she was standing at a distance, lest she become angry. Or you could do it this way. It seemed better to beseech her with words, honey sweet, while she stood at a distance, so that the girl might not become angry or would not become angry. Either way, this is not actually stating a fact, right? This is just part of a clause. And if you look at the ending here, ita, it appears here. And if I notice here, that sigma alpha going all the way down, that tells me this is the tense called aorist. And if you really want to get specific, this is the first aorist. And these are the endings for the middle voice. Okay? So there's just a little primer on the optatives in Odyssey 6, 141 to 148. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time from WBCH BC High Radio.